Morning. Many of us have had our consciousness raised recently regarding the Attorney General's prerogative in defending civil rights among students, teachers, and families in Southern California's Chino Valley. Your office has filed a lawsuit against that school district's parental notification policy, which recently was altered by the district's board. The lawsuit and subsequent maneuverings all have broad implications statewide. We really do look forward to updates on the issue, but we understand that because it's an active litigation, we understand these comments would necessarily be general. First, however, I'd like to invite you, Mr. Bonta, in opening with us, please, to introduce the considerable resources your office devotes to justice for children. There's a whole bureau devoted to this issue within the Civil Rights Enforcement section, and I encourage everyone to review its homepage. Dating from A.G. Harris's tenure, there are sections concentrating on school discipline reform, immigrant rights, juvenile justice reform, education quality, racial justice, LGBTQ rights, standing against child abuse, harassment and neglect, foster care and child welfare, Native American children's, and disability rights. We'd like to invite you, Mr. Bonta, please, in taking a moment to introduce yourself to us, also please include your office. How does this bureau, or other sections, if you will, intersect with the sorts of concerns which animate our membership here at the California Democratic Party's Children's Caucus? We have, all of us from various backgrounds, a keen interest in advocating for children's issues as teachers, counselors, parents, health and welfare professionals. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning.
Good morning. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we have a chance to do this. Let me just say thank you to you personally, Sarah, as well as everyone in the caucus for all you do for our children, for our party, for our state. Thank you for giving up your Saturday morning to be here. I know you have a lot of obligations and commitments on your plate, family and professional and community obligations, and you decided to be here with me. So I'm grateful for that opportunity to talk about the work at the AG's office, the California Department of Justice, as well as our overlapping passion and prioritization for our children. So let me just say that a couple things. One, a lot of times people are super excited and grateful for my role as the California Attorney General. They ask me what they should call me, General or Your Honor or AG or Attorney General, and I always say I'm just Rob, and the most important titles I'll ever have are husband to Mia and dad to my 3 kids. And I think those most important roles in my life make me a better Attorney General. For your purposes, for our purposes today, specifically being a dad and having 3 kids. And I have an oldest daughter who's 24. She graduated from college. She's a professional soccer player overseas in Brazil. I have a second child. We have a second child, Ileana, who's at CSU Dominguez Hills and finishing her first year in college. I have a son who's a freshman in high school, and I'm often up before sunrise to watch my oldest daughter, Raina, the soccer player, play because of the time difference. And I visit my daughter, whether she likes it or not, on my frequent visits to LA. We grab lunch or just get together for a hug and a hello. And I drive the carpool for my son 3 times a week with other students to get him to and from school. And those things I think really help me be a better AG. Worrying about our kids' education, worrying during COVID about learning loss and mental health challenges, worried about how much time they spend on social media, how we're going to pay for college for each of them, because that is our dream for them and them for themselves. Worried about whether they're safe in school. Like when my oldest daughter sent a text to me and Mia saying, Dad, Mom, we're in a active shooter lockdown at school. And then silence and seconds that felt like minutes and minutes that felt like hours. Us, far away at work and helpless, frightened, horrified. And big sigh of relief and happiness and gratefulness when we got the all clear from her. We're worried about where our kids are going to live, if they can afford a home when they grow up, if they'll have a planet for tomorrow. All these things, lived experiences make leaders who they are. And my lived experiences as a dad help me prioritize the work that we do and the fights that we fight. And it really fuels my passion to protect California's children and families. So that's sort of an overview I wanted to share. And that translates into our work very directly. It's why we work so hard to combat gun violence and get guns off our streets and out of our communities. It's why we launched the first of its kind in the nation, Office of Gun Violence Prevention. Later, the White House created its own Office of Gun Violence Prevention. And until someone tells me otherwise, I'm going to say they copied us. We have our Armed Prohibited Persons program, where we're taking guns out of the hands of people who at one point purchased a gun legally, but continue to own a gun when they are now prohibited because of a criminal conviction or a disqualifying mental illness or a restraining order. My love for children, my hope for their future is why we sued 5 of the biggest fossil fuel companies for climate change deception, for knowing since the 50s and 60s about the damage of climate change, global warming, extreme weather, and lying about it to the public while internally knowing exactly with terrifying accuracy where we would be today with climate change and extreme weather. It's why we sued Meta for its knowing harm to children's mental health and sometimes physical health, anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, learning loss, body image challenges, and continuing to use those products and features that create those challenges. It's why we created our Environmental Justice Bureau, to protect children and families living at the intersection of poverty and pollution, who are overburdened and under-resourced, who are the first and worst to be harmed by the challenges of pollution and climate change. That's why we also supported Biden's student loan debt forgiveness plan. Mia and I left college and law school buried under a mountain of debt. It wasn't fair, and others shouldn't have that experience. And we want better for our children and our state and our nation's children, and we can do better. So we're pushing for that. It's also why, to your point, we're standing up for LGBTQ plus children, who even in our great blue state, where we do have deep red counties, they're being attacked. They're being targeted. They're being targeted by forced outing policies and being prevented from learning true, accurate, historical, inclusive history because of some school districts who are pursuing an illegal, ideologically fueled part of a national effort set of initiatives to harm children. Their policy is to attack and hurt children. That is what they're doing, and we will always stand up and fight for our children. And I'll tell you a little bit about Chino Valley. I can give some updates. A lot of it is public, and so happy to talk in greater detail about that. But we do have a Bureau of Children's Justice. I will say one of the great things about being California Attorney General is the opportunity to serve in a line of incredible California leaders who I've always admired and deeply respected, from Javier Becerra and Jerry Brown to Vice President Harris and Bill Lockyer and beyond. And Kamala Harris, when she was the AG, created the Bureau of Children's Justice. And it has done many things. It covers a whole wide range of policy areas. As you know, so many policy areas impact children. So there's a huge intersectionality with an interest and focus and passion for children and the policy areas that impact them. We've called for stronger protections with our Bureau of Children's Justice for justice-involved youth. We've also put out guidance for law enforcement on how to reduce harm when working with sexually exploited youth, and those who are being trafficked. We issued a legal alert reminding school districts and boards and Superintendents that forced gender identity disclosure policies violate state law. We've reminded educational entities of their requirement to provide inclusive curricula to public K-12 schools. That's some of our most recent work. And just broadly, I'll say this, then we can get into some specific questions, and I'll say a little bit more about Chino Valley. Let me just first start with Chino Valley. We sued Chino Valley for having a forced adding policy. It was the first school district that we focused on. We believed it was an important test case for this issue that we were seeing arising throughout the state and throughout the nation. A ideological, organized and strategic approach to sort of wrap this, what was in truth a targeting and attacking of children, a policy that put children in danger, threatened their mental and physical health, and calling it a parental rights policy. And you need go no further than the actual statements on the dais when the policy was being put in place to hear and know what was really fueling this. It was nothing but animus towards transgender and gender nonconforming children. They were called a perversion and a threat to American traditions and an illness, something broken that needed to be fixed. The own words of the school board members as they passed this policy. And so we knew exactly what we were dealing with, discriminatory conduct, and we set about to make our best case, and we brought 4 different causes of action in our complaint. We alleged that the policy violated the Equal Protection Clause of the state of California, the privacy protections of the state of California, and also the government code and education code, which requires inclusive experiences and environments in our schools, a very special and unique environment to support our children. And we've won. We won with our temporary restraining order. We won with our preliminary injunction. We had 2 different judges 2 different times say that we were likely to prevail. And we continue to prevail in court. We're moving towards a final resolution where we will be successful. And so we're grateful for that. And I'll always remember when our team went in to argue the first temporary restraining order, there were some transgender students who were in the audience watching, and they came up to our team members afterwards and they said, we're grateful. Thank you. It means a lot to us that the state, our government, sees us and values us and is fighting for us. And we haven't seen that before. And we're grateful for that support from California, who is fighting for us. That's not usually how we feel. And I'll never forget that impact on children, and children who deserve to be and should be loved and supported and protected and defended, and whose rights, as well as whose dignity and humanity should always be fought for and protected. So, that spirit that I have to fight for our children is something I got from my parents, who were social justice warriors. My dad marched in Selma. He was receiving audio cassette tapes from across the country in Alabama when he was in Berkeley from a friend who was telling him, you need to listen to this leader who is talking about a more just society and a more fair world. And it was the voice of Martin Luther King Jr. sent an audio cassette tape to my dad that inspired him to jump on a train and go to Selma and join the movement. And he met Stokely Carmichael. He was in church at Brown Chapel AME when Martin Luther King Jr. showed up for an unannounced sermon. He organized for voting rights and civil rights. Both my parents later, after bringing me from the Philippines when I was 2 months old to escape a martial law and the rise of a dictator, and to help ensure that I had democracy, freedom, human rights, and civil rights, and the rule of law, brought me to California. They started working for the United Farm Workers of America. We lived in La Paz, the headquarters. My dad worked in the front office with Cesar Chavez. My mom in the preschool with Dolores Huerta. They were part of one of the greatest social justice movements our nation and state have ever seen. They fought for workers' rights and a fair contract. And later, my mom would bring me when I was growing up to rallies and demonstrations and protests fighting for the restoration of democracy back in the Philippines. And I always wondered what a little boy and his mom could do, what these chants and rallies and, with this fist in the air meant. And I saw in 1986 what it meant years later when other boys and girls and moms and dads from throughout the state, this nation, and in the Philippines demanded through the People Power Revolution that the dictator be toppled, and he was, and he fled the country, and democracy be restored, and it was. So I've seen people power at its best. My parents didn't just tell me, they showed me, and I always wanted to be part of that. And so having this role, positional power, being able to be the Attorney General of the state of California, my goal is to never squander the authority that we have and always use it for good, and to always make sure that those who are being hurt and harmed, attacked, targeted by those in power are protected and defended. And that absolutely means our children. So, my parents taught me when something's not right, it's time to fight. We fight all the time for our children across many different areas where children are being hurt, whether it be education or healthcare or gun safety or the environment, many of the things I just discussed. So I'll leave it at that for my opening remarks. A huge thank you for all you do. I'm grateful for our partnership and collaboration. Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to be here with you and look forward to your questions.
Well, thank you for touching on the children, the Chino Valley situation. It is what most of us are very, very keen to hear about, but we understand the problems of active litigation. So I'll just leave it at that and move on a little to ask about enforcement of the law within the schools. I'm wondering where the state's legal prerogative intersects with schools' autonomy and education code. What happens when school board trustees ignore ed code or other forms of law? Is there a protocol for enforcing ed code? Please, could you talk to us about the process and prerogative around enforcement of these laws, where our members fit into, or more importantly, where they can access your office and its actions? Oops, I think you're muted.
Hold on, it's me. I muted everybody. Do we have him on as a co-host? Otherwise,
I don't think so, but I can.
Okay, let me get him. Go ahead, AG Bonta. And I'll also make you a co-host.
Quick, yeah. Sorry about that.
You're good now, I think, sir.
Okay, sorry, I muted myself and then I couldn't unmute. So my apologies. Thank you. In short, we enforce the ed code. We are under the state constitution, the chief law officer, and we are tasked and have the duty, the authority to ensure that the laws of the state are uniformly and adequately enforced. And that includes our education code, among other codes, criminal code, civil code, etc. So there certainly is some local autonomy, but you are not allowed to break the law. And we get this all the time from cities like Huntington Beach when it comes to housing, school districts like Chino Valley, who, very ironically, they're breaking the law and they're saying, come on, the state is being a tyrant by coming in and, we want local control. What they're saying is we want to be able to break the law without accountability. And, these are many of the same people who talk about the need for law enforcement and enforcement of the law. And, while they are deliberately and brazenly breaking the law in Chino Valley, we sent a letter to the board and when we saw their proposed policy before they passed it, telling them, if you pass this, this will break the law. And they passed it and they broke the law. And we got an injunction and a TRO in court. So we do have a role in monitoring compliance with the ed code, any laws passed by the legislature, frankly, that identify the obligations of LEAs, and we issue guidance to assist them with implementing all the statutes. We help them. We want them to be able to comply. We don't do gotchas where we wait for you to break the law and then we sue you. We want you to follow the law. In the first instance, we'd rather not sue. We don't seek litigation. We only use litigation when it's the last resort to hold someone who has been informed that they're not in compliance to be in compliance and to force them into compliance by a court order. So if we become aware that an LEA is ignoring or violating state law, then we reach out to inform them of the violation. We provide an opportunity to cure in most instances. And then if those warnings go unheeded, we investigate them, make sure that we have the facts that we think we have and that we need, match up the law, and then we seek a variety of remedies from the courts, including what's called enjoining their actions, which means stopping them from, halting the unlawful conduct, subjecting them to ongoing monitoring with court oversight, oftentimes to sort of keep an eye on them through a court as they continue to take additional actions going forward. And then we also seek monetary punishment, penalties and sanctions when appropriate. So that's one of our important roles with school districts and LEAs, and we work often in collaboration and partnership with the superintendent of public instruction, with the governor of the state of California. For example, when we sent a joint letter, the three of us, to Temecula Valley about their violation of the Fair Education Act when they were banning books and censoring true history in their schools.
Thank you. Do we members and teachers and school board trustees, do we have a role in interacting with your office in this enforcement? How do we phone 911?
Yeah, absolutely. Communicating with us is so very important for our job. We're big. We are the largest state department of justice in the nation. We have nearly 6,000 employees, 1,200 attorneys, and we can't be everywhere and know everything. We don't have investigators in at every school board meeting, at every work site, in every hospital to monitor violations. So we rely on being alerted on reports from people on the ground who are experiencing something amiss to contact us. And I encourage you to reach out to us and use our office as a resource, as a partner. I can put in the chat different places you can reach out. We have an Office of Community Awareness, Response, and Engagement, who is our outward-facing set of liaisons and team members who their job is to work with and for community members to be in circles and in meetings and to receive input from community members on problems and how we can solve them together. We also have our Bureau of Children's Justice. You can submit an official complaint to the Bureau, and you can also call our Public Inquiry Unit, PIU, as well. And so I don't know if Marco's on this call, but maybe Marco, you can put that in the chat.
That would be great. Thank you. And if there's an opportunity for us, I mean, we have so many questions. If there's an opportunity for us to submit these and to receive some response back, I will get them to our membership. It will be really helpful to us. Thank you. I think people feel overwhelmed and very frightened with the current circumstances. We're hoping for some intensification of protection and also, instruction on how we can be heard and bring you information. So thanks.
I put those details in the chat. Looks like I don't have access to the whole group. I sent it directly to you, Sarah. So maybe you can share with.
We'll get it out. So we're also as you mentioned, safety in our school communities, it's paramount for learning as well as for working. There's a strong movement to account for equitable access, opportunity, and consequence throughout our public institutions, from schools to jails and prisons. We hope you could tell us what would be the role for the Attorney General in disrupting a school to prison pipeline and re-envisioning punitive measures for youth to incorporate resources and supports.
Yeah, this is something that we spend a lot of time on, and children are unique in their where they are in their development, in their progress towards adulthood, the need for support, opportunity, certainly second chances and pathways for success. And so that looks like a lot of different things. And when folks try to impose discipline and punishment instead of a social service, health and human services model, then that becomes problematic for us. So we have been involved in quite a few approaches. We always support programs and services to uplift children and give them what they need to be successful. So we've been involved in things like due process in school discipline, where we were involved in the Thomas Unified School District, urging the court to overturn an unlawful expulsion of an elementary school student. When we outlined that student's right to due process when facing an expulsion. We think kids should have opportunities to learn, not be pushed out and kicked out. We also got involved with protecting due process and reporting sexual violence. We led a multi-state effort to support stronger protections against sexual violence and harassment in schools. And when there were unnecessary barriers put in place, we help ensure the rights of youth in foster care. Of course, a very vulnerable group of young people and who are in need of support. We've been involved with the LA Probation Department and its juvenile justice system, where children are not getting what they need and are not being taken to doctor's visits and to schools, and are in carceral punitive environments instead of healing supportive environments. And so we continue to push for the outcome and getting more and more urgent and aggressive in our approaches, and we're confident we're going to get to an outcome that will work in a place that has fallen short for far too long. We also were able to turn around the Humboldt County Department of Health and Human Services policies and practices around child abuse and neglect reporting, and we have got a court order in place there. So those are some of the things that we've been involved in. We've also pushed back against school closures when they have a disparate impact on certain communities, including Black and brown communities or low-income students. In particular, we were involved in that in Oakland. But our whole Bureau of Children's Justice is based on a supportive, healing model for young people that emphasizes education and support, like healthcare and housing and food and things that children at a minimum need to be able to achieve and realize whatever their vision of the California dream is, and to stay clear as much as possible of punitive components and carceral approaches. Kids need opportunities to thrive, and if they're traumatized and facing challenges, unfortunately, like many are, to heal and to have a chance to be their best selves.
Well, thank you very much. I understand it's getting past 10. Have you time for one more question, or are we through?
We can keep going. Go ahead.
Okay, I appreciate it. You touched on this a little bit, but I want to mention that as a vulnerable demographic, our youth are prey to a wide variety of exploitation, from economic drainage of public services, for example, through for-profit vendors contracting with nonprofit educational enterprises, all the way to ancestral structures of competitive advantage like affirmative action, which was enacted to balance inequity of access. So if you were able to talk about some of these ways the office safeguards due process for youth, I know you mentioned that you are doing it, but hearing some of that in practice will be very helpful. How you ensure diverse access to public resources, and how you mentioned that you think there's a role basically for safeguarding youth from the privations due to homelessness and food insecurity. But if you can, give examples of how that is something your office can work to, and therefore, in particular, that gives our members an idea of understanding how we can interact and look forward to that kind of protection.
Yeah, there are quite a few. Again, we defend and protect and uphold existing law. Thankfully, to some, to a large degree, at the federal level, and in the state level, there's been many supports and services, programs, safety nets, if you will, that protect children. Oftentimes we do have partisanship, but many times we can get past that when it comes to children. Not always, but there, there's certain food programs and healthcare programs that are a little easier to provide when it's children who are the beneficiaries. And so we have been supportive of those programs when they are challenged, including our work to help ensure that there's access to food justice programs, low-income food programs, and we get involved in courts around the country when it comes to those challenges. They're not at risk so much in California as much as they are in other states in the country. We've also been active helping provide access pathways to school, including college, and really been tackling the very high student debt challenges that we're seeing across the country that are preventing kids from being able to achieve and pursue and realize their dreams of going to college. We've really been involved in housing issues, generally forcing cities to follow the law and build more housing, but also specifically when it comes to discrimination that impacts children's ability to have a safe and affordable place to put their head down at night, and including discriminatory crime-free housing policies, they're called. So we've touched on quite a few spaces to ensure that there's access to the public supports that exist for children. And then, when there are actions that harm children, we get involved. We're still seeing some school segregation challenges, and we've been involved in pushing back against school segregation. We've talked about the support for justice-involved youth in LA and other places as well. And then school discipline, there's often disparate impacts when it comes to kids who are being pushed into a school-to-prison pipeline, and often a disparate impact on Black and brown kids. So we cover quite a few areas, and I know that as a caucus, your areas of interest when it comes to children have a lot of nexus points and policy interaction. So we're very happy to dig into one or more places with you as you're interested. We can have deeper conversations and bring in some of the actual team members who are working directly on these cases. We're interested in opportunities to protect and support kids when they're being harmed or the law is being broken. So please consider us a partner, a resource. This is a sort of a first meeting with a little bit of an overview about what we do, what we fight for, some of the cases we've been involved in, and it comes with an invitation to do more with you when there are issues that you feel are important. I'm glad we're able to do this. It sounds like there's a lot of folks with a lot of concern, anxiety, worry, fear even, but please know that we're here, and that's why we're here, to fight with you, for the kids you care about, for the issues that you are fighting for. And I've shared some information with Sarah about who you can reach out to, and I hope that you will reach out to us.
Oh, thank you so much. I want to sincerely thank you on behalf of all the Children's Caucus for spending time with us on this morning at the expense of your own family. It's really important information, and it informs our own members' capacity to be advocates for children's issues. So I appreciate the opportunity to send you some of these questions. I think we have several dozen of them at this point. So please pay attention or help us to find somebody who can. Anyway, thank you so much. If you have any more questions, please feel free, any more issues, please feel free to sum up, or if that's enough, I understand if you need to hop off.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Again, a beginning, not an end today. Looking forward to ongoing conversation. Please share with us whatever you're worried about. And you are the backbone, not just of our party, but as people who care about our future, our children of our state. And we need active, engaged folks that we can team up with to help us be better, fight harder, protect our children, and really move the needle on all these policy areas. So your engagement with our team is welcome, is invited, is necessary. Don't hesitate to reach out. If we are the people that can work on the issue that you bring to us, we'll fight our hardest to deliver. If someone else is a better fit, we'll do a warm handoff to where that support and that partnership can be found. So looking forward to our ongoing collaboration ahead, and thank you all for the time today. I know there's a lot of work to do, but we can do it when we do it together. So thank you for all that you do. We're going to keep doing our part too.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.